Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the President's Day version of Axanar Confidential. I am Alec Peters, your host and the creator of Axanar, and today we have a very special guest. We're real excited to have with us Sam Travis himself. Many of you know him as General Martok, John G. Hertzler. And John, welcome to Axanar Confidential. It is great to have you on board.
It's great to be here, Alec, as always.
Well, and tell us where you are exactly, because some people might assume you're in Hollywood, California, being the big-time actor you are.
New York, up freaking state where it's been snowing now for like 5 weeks straight. It's snowing right now, and we're sick of it.
There was even snow in Las Vegas, I saw.
No.
Yeah. So by Vegas, you know who posted a picture? Nicole Padberg, your good friend.
Did she really?
Yeah, who obviously, was the reason I know you, because Nicole introduced us.
Did she?
Yeah. After I conned Richard Hatch into playing Karn in Prelude, Nicole was the one who said, "Oh, well, I know JG because I've performed with him. I've sung for his band." And I said, "Well, would you make an introduction?" And she made the introduction, and then you and I picked it up, and you were like, "Well, if it's good enough for Richard Hatch, it's good enough for me." So.
No, I didn't say that, Alec. I said I read the script, and I said, this is a bunch of talking heads about a thing that happened in the past, which never really happened at all because it's fiction. But I said, this will never work. And what you said was, well, Richard Hatch thinks it work. And I said, honestly, my response was, what is Richard Hatch?
I remember that. Do you know, I remember exactly where I was. I was driving right there in Burbank, and I remember exactly where I was when you and I had this conversation.
And then, I said, well, let me sleep on it. And I came back and I said, you know what? I think this could work. But then we did the weekend, where most of the shooting was on a weekend, right? Just one weekend?
Yeah, it was 2 days separated by a week. It was like one day on a weekend and then another day on a weekend, I think.
What studio was it, though? That was one of the old 1920s film studios.
Yeah, Ben Catay Studios.
It was right off of Santa Monica Boulevard, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was a nice little studio, and it was great. It was perfect for our needs. It was really great. Yeah.
But when I walked in, and you had those, you started the whole people, the whole group, the whole staff, the whole crew was laying down track, and I said, "You have track?" Yeah. And 3 cameras, I think, and then all this green screen. And I said, well, this is pretty cool. This is the real thing. Because, there's so many things that happen that are not the real thing, and you say, well, I'll do it, But this was every bit as professional and exciting as the Star Trek set that at Paramount Pictures. So, and then when I saw the finished product, I said, wow, right down to Richard's, and Tobias or whoever did the sound for that batlet, the sword hitting the deck.
Which was like a late addition. I think Rob and Mark Edward Luce, our sound designer, like put that in at the. Yeah, it was really that was great. Well, and it's funny because when we were shooting it, we certainly all hoped it would look good and it would be good. And we were really banking on you guys to make it happen. It was so wonderful. And I'm trying to think who you were shooting with. Were you shooting with Tony on the day Tony Todd was shooting? I'm trying to think.
Tony was there, but he was later in the day. I think he got there while I was basically finishing up. Gary Graham was there, because we had long conversations about his automobiles, and
so it was you, Gary. That makes sense. It was you, Gary, and Tony then. were
Tony
on.
was. I don't think Kate was there because
No, Kate was on the day that I shot. It was Kate.
Yeah.
I think it was Kate, me, and Richard on that that day. Well, and I'll tell you, it was Tony. He's a character. He really is a character. I mean, he's a phenomenal actor. He's brilliant, but he's really intense too. And I remember he came. Two things I remember about when you shot with him was, one, he had his uniform on like your uniform,
right.
and it had the little triangle ribbons
Right.
on it, which were kind of campaign ribbons, right?
Right.
And he asked me, and he said, he came out to the hallway. And he said, Alec, what are these? What do these represent? And I said, well, they're campaign ribbons. And he goes, well, I need to assign things to these, so I understand their meaning. And I was like, wow. I mean, this is something that when I was in Howard Fine's acting class, he would talk about things like this, like embodying every little thing with meaning. And here I was watching Tony, and it was just like, wow, you really are serious about this role, aren't you? And then it was Gary was getting his ears on in makeup, and I walked in, and Gary, he's always cutting up.
Oh yeah.
There's not a straight bone in his body, and he's cutting up in the makeup room, and so I'm in there laughing with him, and Tony comes in, and he just walks in, and he walks right up to me, and I was like in the middle of laughing about something from that Gary had said to me, and I look at Tony, and Tony looks at me, and he goes, "You're my best commander," and I was like, holy shit, he's doing that acting thing. And I had to straighten up like that and give him an answer, and it was like, yes, sir. It was, but he was like, he would catch you anywhere, and it was really, all you guys were an education.
There's a reason that he gets as much work as he gets. First of all, he's a giant human being.
Yeah.
That sets him aside. But
with a great voice,
he is specific in such things as the theater ribbons. I never thought about them. I said, "Oh, that's an interesting configuration, but I'm not sure what it means." It doesn't matter. It's like I sort of embodied the one of the lines that Martok had when Worf says, "But General, that is not the Klingon way." And I said, Worf, anything a Klingon does is the Klingon way. I guess that's the sloppy way I approach life. I wish I had the thought and the specificity that Tony has in that moment, because what you saying that, just what it said to me was, John, why didn't you ask what those ribbons were? Which was a medal, which was a theater ribbon. I just went through, it's funny, I have a lot of things left over from my dad, who was in the Air Force. He enlisted in 1940 and went through World War II, and then went through the Korean War.
Wow.
And he has a lot of theater ribbons and a lot of, I don't know what everything means. But I said, boy, what is it? What theater is this? What is this? And he always, the other thing about him is he always wanted to fly, to be a pilot. He wanted the Air Corps to be a pilot, but his eyes weren't good enough, so he had to be on the crew, in the ground crew. And they flew with bombers. As one of the crew members, a crew chief on a bomber in World War II, flew with the bomber because they had to maintain it during the flight as well as on the ground. And he did a lot of that. But I don't really know. He died very young at 64, so it seems young to me. I'm 68 now. But he was not around long enough, and I don't really know much about him. But I will say this. What I just talked about there in terms of him not being around long enough, I added to one of the most important speeches that Martok has. In the episode that Martok hated, or Kor came to the ship and wanted he wanted a honorable death.
Right.
And I basically said, "F you, Kor." He was the individual that prevented me from getting getting into officers candidate school for the Klingons.
Right.
I was not of noble blood, but I finally did get in because of things that I did in battle. And Worf had asked me, what do you have against Kor? And I explained that he was the person who stood in the way of the only dream for me that my father had. He prevented my father from realizing his only dream. And then I eventually got into the thing because of deeds, but my father had already died. He's already passed away. So I got to add that line to the end of that long speech where I said, unfortunately, my father never lived to see that day. And that's why we'll never forgive Kor. And they said, okay, at the end, when he gets his honorable death, you're going to be singing with the rest of the crew about, to the honor of the great Dahar master. I said, I'm not singing. And they said, why not? I said, because I will never forgive him, and I'll take that to my grave. So
I think I think that episode was called "Once More Into the Breach."
Oh, absolutely.
Right,
yeah.
Right, and it was great because in the end, Kor kind of sacrifices himself.
Right.
And that was a great episode, not just for Kor, because John Colicos was.
Yes, no more. Say no more.
Brilliant. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I own his costume.
Wow.
From Deep Space Nine. Yeah, I have that costume. I should have shown it to you when you were here for Axicon. But no, that episode was so great because it showed us a part of Martok that was really a struggle. You saw his struggle and you understood it, but you wanted these two guys to. You felt for Kor, this old broken down warrior.
Absolutely, it was a well written thing. It was Robert. It was Ron Moore, wrote it, and I had to call him. I said, Ron, can I add this little line at the end of that speech? And he said, absolutely, because it wrapped it up. And John Colicos, I gave him a book at the end of that episode. I had found a theater book, a Broadway. Like a yearbook for a year on Broadway, like 52 or something. And in that, I don't think it was that early. It might have been 60. But in that book was a little chapter on Taming of the Shrew, where John Colicos was playing Petruchio and Katharine Hepburn was playing Kate. So he was on Broadway with Katharine Hepburn.
Wow.
Beyond.
Wow. Actually, do you know that Katharine Hepburn was the first play I ever saw on Broadway when I was in high school was A Matter of Gravity with Katharine Hepburn and a young pre-Superman Chris Reeves.
Chris Reeves? Oh, wow.
Yeah, I still have the playbill.
Who went to Cornell, by the way?
Sorry?
Chris Reeves.
Oh, yeah.
Who went to Cornell.
Oh, yeah.
He was here.
Yeah.
Cornell's about 10 miles down the street. Yeah.
Sure. Oh, very good. By the way, got to acknowledge Michael Cannell, who gave us a $10 super chat. Thank you very much, Michael. We appreciate that. And then there was another one. James Belts. JG, will you come to Tennessee and do a meet and greet? I'll speak for JG and said you get him into a convention, and I'm sure he'll come down because JG loves doing conventions.
I'd love to. Tennessee, we were in Louisville. That's Kentucky, right? I don't think I've ever been to anything in Tennessee, unless where is the Grand Ole Opry? Where is Nashville? That's Tennessee. Yeah, I have done a convention at the Grand Ole Opry. What was that? That was a Star Trek convention. That's right.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that hotel, the Grand Ole Opry Hotel, is the biggest place I've ever seen. It's like a small nation.
We should go to Memphis. That's near.
Well, we should go there to see your dad anyway. Yeah. Anyway, Tennessee and Kentucky have always. Let me see who's. Not Kate, but. Oh, Christ. Her names. Who was Kaler?
Susie Plaxton, yeah.
Susie Plaxton's she's from Kentucky, I think, and her father, she wrote a song about Kentucky rifles, a rifleman, I guess in World War II. Anyway, have you heard her song, her music?
No,
her sing.
I didn't know she sang.
She's a wonderful singer, very alto, but wonderful singer. Get one of her albums, because I don't know what they're called, but hell of a singer. So
so John Colicos, it's so funny because there's so many intersection points with Colicos. Back in 1999, before I started my first technology company, I worked for a technology company, and we did an event. We did a Battlestar Galactica reunion convention as a promotional thing, and I had Richard out, and we had Dirk Benedict and Annie Lockhart and John Colicos, and it was actually John Colicos's last convention before, and he passed away like 6 months later. And he was such a gentleman, and just so old school Hollywood.
He passed away in 2000?
Yeah, right. Right. I think it was
2 years ago.
I'm sorry?
I can't believe that. I can't believe it was that long. 18 years ago.
Yeah, wow. It was. But he was so old school, and I remember at that convention, because on Saturday night we all went out to dinner. You know, we took all the actors out together, and there was such a good group. They all knew each other, right? And here you had, so at this table, and I remember we kind of put these two round tables together with a square in the middle, so it kind of looked like an hourglass. And anyway, there's Richard, and across the table is Dirk. Now, Richard, as you know, could talk forever. He just could. You start him, you wind him up, and boom, he goes, and he'll talk forever, and he's great. You love it about him. And Dirk's got a little. He's got a little of the. I don't know what's the word I should, but he likes the center of attention. He likes being the center of attention, right? And so there's Dirk trying. So these two guys, Richard, because he's naturally effusive, and there's Dirk, and they're both talking and trying to be the center of attention. And then down here is John Colicos, and John Colicos is, well, when I was on stage with Richard Burton, and he'd be telling us these, and we're all like, holy crap, this guy is like the walking encyclopedia of film and television.
Yeah. Wow.
And
yeah, he's something.
And I'll tell you, so here's the other intersection point. Kate Vernon called him Uncle John. Because Kate's father, John Vernon, had, they were working actors in the 50s and 60s and 70s. John Vernon, famously Dean Wormer in Animal House.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And one of his great roles was the sheriff in The Outlaw Josie Wales. Do you remember that?
What about that? I just saw that. It was a year ago already.
Dude, that scene at the end when he knows that Clint Eastwood is Josie Wales, but he doesn't want to arrest him or fight him or anything. He knows that scene. He knows that Clint Eastwood just wants to be left alone, and so he's kind of talking to Clint Eastwood about Josie Wales in the third person. And if you see him, tell him the war's over, and that. That's such a great scene.
But that's writing. That's writing. Brilliant. When a character doesn't know something that you know, or the character pretends not to know something in a conversation with somebody else that doesn't know. One of the great in Julius Caesar, Brutus has a scene with Cassius in a tent where the unspoken thing is known by everybody reading the play or watching the play, except that Cassius doesn't know. And it's Brutus's wife has just committed suicide, and they're talking about strategy. But you know that everything going on in Brutus's mind is the loss of his wife. And anyway, that's great writing. It's subtext that without subtext, you've got nothing. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, also, so Stephen Hughes sent us a $25 super chat. John, if you're not familiar with YouTube, people can donate money to our studio actually in YouTube. And when they do, they will ask a question or something, and we call them out. So Stephen Hughes donated $25, and he wants to know, so what is in blood wine? By the way, John, here you go.
Yeah.
Here's a bottle that you may have touched in your career. It's an actual Klingon blood wine from the set.
Is there a vintage printed on that somewhere? If it said 2309 on it, that'd be
no, sadly not.
But the wine, I've had so much blood. The worst blood wine I've had in a convention type of thing, where people, they always bring up some convention. Have you tried my blood wine? I'm a Klingon. I have to drink whatever anybody puts in front of me. You know, that's the way it is. It's the price you pay. But in Nevada, there's a Klingon feast out in the desert, which was one of the most amazing things we ever did. Bob and I went to it, but I had blood wine that was like poachine. Do you know what poachine is?
No.
It is homemade Irish whiskey, pretty much, right? Yeah, it's bootleg. It's not bootleg, but what's it called when you make it?
Moonshine. Moonshine.
And I was out. I mean, I was still walking around and talking, but I had no memory of most of the hours of that evening. But the blood wine started it, and usually it's got too much sugar in it, which doesn't help a hangover. But it's usually, we've had cranberry, and we never had any good alcoholic blood wine on the set. That would probably be illegal. But I've had, if anything that can turn red, it can put into a bottle. Yeah, I've drunk it.
Well, hey, thank you for that. Thank you for that question, Stephen. So let's talk about how you got to play. I mean, you played a lot of roles in Star Trek. I believe. Are you tied with Jeffrey Combs?
Claims to have played more characters, but it's not true.
You did.
Yeah, I did 10, maybe 11, because I've done so many. I've done the Armada and Star Trek Online, two different Star Treks Online, 3 different voices in them.
Oh, really?
No, yeah, and
11 if you count Sam Travis.
11. Yeah, you got to count that. It's part of the Star Trek franchise. Sam Travis. Yeah.
In Deep Space, because in Deep Space Nine, you were the Vulcan captain in the pilot in Emissary, the captain of the Saratoga.
That was the first. Yeah.
And then you were the changeling in one of the episodes, and was that season 1 or 2?
No, that was after. It was about the last season, or next to the last season, I think. Laws,
yeah.
Because I had already well established Martok, and my fear was that people will just hear Martok in Laws, and I said, what can I do? And I said, I guess that's it. I'll attempt Captain Kirk in a higher pitch. So that's what I did, but people still heard Martok in it. So I don't know. I've done 10 or 11, counting the Herodian and 3 or 4 different Klingons, Kolos and the Borderlands captain. A lot. And Jeffrey Combs is right up there, too. I was just watching Jeffrey. Renee Echevarria, one of the main writers of DS9, along with Ira Bear, did 4400 right after DS Basic.
Which was good. Which was a good show.
Yeah, I've been watching it. I didn't watch it when it came out, and I was teaching at Cornell. He asked me to come up and do something, and I said I really can't leave. It's in the middle of the semester. I'm teaching. I'm a professor, and I couldn't leave Cornell, but I wish I did. I love the show. I'm watching it, and I noticed there's Alice Krieg was on it. Jeffrey Combs is on it all the time. He's playing it, you know, another Jeffrey Combs weirdo, like the ones he did on DS9. But he's a wonderful actor.
Oh, Jeffrey's great. By the way, do you know, I approached Jeffrey back in the pre-lawsuit days to play Karn's mentor, this character Moreau, who's the old Klingon.
Right.
And I approached Jeffrey about doing it because I was like, oh, he would just nail this role. It would be great. And we haven't seen him as a Klingon. And he read it, and he was such a lovely gentleman. We had lunch there in opposite Aroma Cafe there in Studio City, and he was absolutely lovely. But after he read it, he was like, you know, Alec, I just don't want to play a Klingon. I think he was too much. He was kind of got too much of the space Viking thing, right? And
what year was this?
So this was 2015.
Oh, okay. In about 2011 or 12, we did a convention together in Germany, and Jeffrey, he wanted to do. All of a sudden, he decided to do a chest bump with me, and so he came running across the stage and threw his chest into mine. And I was a linebacker in college, and I'm sort of used to planting my feet when I see somebody approaching it. And I didn't move, and he bounced off my chest, going backwards, flailing his arms. And it was such a surprise. And I'm sure that helped him hate the Klingon race.
Oh,
well, but that's maybe why he still resented that moment.
I think my girlfriend's passing by the French doors to my room and holding doggy bags and giving me a nasty look. So I think that means that the foster dog took a dump in our living room. As she shakes her head, yes. So I'm gonna have her on to say hi to you and to be on for a little bit to appease her after she cleans up the poop. Oh. Boy,
man,
it looks. And I'm wearing my El Paso Chihuahuas T-shirt here.
So Chihuahuas.
Yeah, the El Paso Chihuahuas. They're a minor league baseball team. And
did you live in El Paso?
I'm sorry.
Did you live in El Paso?
No. Just we rescued a Chihuahua and 2 Chihuahuas last year. And,
oh, wow.
And the Chihuahua was like the last dog I ever thought I would own. Like I had a Siberian Husky when I was a kid. I liked big, and this little Chihuahua. I was always like, ugh, Chihuahuas. And then I have one, and you know, you fall in love with these things. And he's a dog. Okay, we got some super chats I got to cover here. So JG, so well, let's go to Michael. Oh, Michael Kuenhoven. $20 super chat, but he doesn't ask. Michelle, I'm sorry, Michelle. And Michelle, I don't know, you didn't ask a question, so you have to ask us a question so we can make your super chat worthwhile. Thank you so much.
I can help here. Ask a question, Michelle.
There you go. JG's asking.
How about...
Which Star Trek captain do you despise the most?
Oh, that's easy. That's Kate Mulgrew.
Okay.
Absolutely.
It's out there.
You mean Janeway. You don't like Captain Janeway.
No, of all the Star Trek captains, the starship captains, it was Captain Janeway. She was like, to me, she was like a high school teacher with a class that she couldn't quite control. My mother was a teacher, and I just recognized the behavior patterns, and I said, no, I don't think so. But anyway, of all the other ones, I love them all. And Janeway, you know, she had her moments, that's for sure. But and it's not because she was a woman, because I believe my mother, for instance. My dad was in the Air Force. My mother was a high school teacher, Latin and French. And so I have never known a woman in my life, my early life, my mother and my 2 sisters. They always worked. Women always had a job. They were not stay-at-home moms. They were always professionals. And my sister's a lawyer. And my other sister taught special ed for 35 years. I mean, astounding. What's that? Yeah, and Chevy is a lawyer right here, a constitutional law lawyer. But
Wow.
we're going to Puerto Rico in April, and I contacted a guy named George Mustafa, who is the head of the Star Trek fan club down there in Puerto Rico. Anyway,
No, go ahead.
looks like somebody's going to join you.
Yes, Crystal, my girlfriend. This is her. This is Crystal. You know JG. You've met.
I love
you
JG.
know JG.
A few times.
And how was it? Yeah, was it messy?
It's a big dog.
So my girlfriend was scooping up poop while I was here having a good time with you. So I feel obligated to bring her into the mix here.
Thanks.
Yes, but you don't have to make the scatological references. You know, you can leave that out.
Hey, so okay.
Kristen, you look fabulous, by the way. Just look at you.
She's
And
beautiful.
that's just from maintaining dogdom, and you didn't spend 5 hours in front of the makeup trailer and the hair trailer and whatnot, did you? Oh,
No, she's naturally beautiful.
yes, she is. I was looking for that picture of the writers, Ira Bear and Weddle and Bradford. It doesn't matter. It's anyway.
Well, we've got another question. Exploring Fate sent us a super chat, and their question is for both of us: what current or most recent sci-fi shows or movies have caught your interest or like lately?
Why don't you go first?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. All right, I binged on Fringe of late.
Oh yeah.
Which I never watched. I didn't see any of it, and I can't tell you how much I adored it. I stayed up till 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. You sit there, you say, "Geez, I think I got time for one more episode."
Yeah.
I'm watching 4400 right now because I never watched it when it was on. Fringe. The other one, the Orville, I watch a little bit.
Do you like the Orville?
And I love it. Yeah.
And now, of course, the fans, if they haven't asked it already, are going to ask it. Do you like Star Trek Discovery? Have you watched Star Trek Discovery?
I have never seen it. I haven't seen one episode of it.
All right.
I really have to watch. It took me a long time just to figure out what disc. Disco vary. The disco's in the front and varies in the back. I said, what the hell is it with that? Then finally, John, it's Discovery.
You've exploring Fate. I'm big on Orville. I'm loving the second season of Discovery. It's so much better than the first.
That's what I hear.
Yeah. So it's real, and the guy Anson Mount who's playing Captain Pike is fantastic. He is really good. He's saving that show. So then John Peter Presson Protospultus sent us a $10 super chat. Thank you very much. David G Sound. I owe you so much more for the joy your project has brought me. Great chat too. Thank you very much, David. We are honored. Michael Weir. Michael is like our @1 fan donor. He's just been awesome. Matter of fact, Michael gets a big shout out because we just had. Hey, Michael. We just had a dog rescue that was involved with us that helped us rescue some puppies, and the dog rescue desperately needed money. And I messaged Michael yesterday. I said, Michael, I know you said you wanted to donate some more. Here's the situation, and Michael came through in a huge, huge way. So Michael is like, we love you, Michael. You're awesome. Michael says, just want to say that we are all excited to have you here. I assume he's talking to you, JG. Which captain do you like the best? So Kirk, Picard, Cisco, Janeway, Archer, who is your favorite?
Of all of Star Trek, I think my favorite character is Bones McCoy. DeForest Kelly. I don't know why. Maybe it's because He did all those westerns early on. But in terms of the captains, it's such an incredibly difficult role, captain of a ship. I think it's got to be Christopher Plummer.
That's Chang, huh?
Yeah, I think I just fell out watching him. Let's slip the dogs of war.
Yeah, he was great. He was great. Although listen, here's the other great captain in Star Trek VI was Captain Sulu. Do you remember? So Sulu was captaining the Excelsior in Star Trek VI, and there at the end of you remember that?
I love Sulu. I don't. He would not be my pick for a captain. I have to say that. George is one of the most special people I've ever known. But captains, they have to be full of themselves, and he's not.
He's not. No, he's not.
He's full of himself.
Yeah. He was very understated as Captain Sulu.
Yeah. He would be, he and Spock are like, Spock. I wouldn't put him up there either. But he was perfect, as the medical, as the second in command. Like Frakes is the second in command.
Mm-hmm. Well, you should watch. You talk about Star Trek VI there.
I have to say Picard. I really do, because Patrick has both incredible vulnerability, as the other captains had, and he has an absolutely self-confident arrogance that does not piss people off. It's just that's the way it is. It's competence. It's competence. Yes, ultimate competence.
Yep. My favorite was Sisko. I just from the beginning, from that first episode. Something about him, and I got to tell Avery this at one point when I saw him at the Christie's auction. I said, the fact that he was a father, took his being a captain out of the realm of he's just a captain, and then we're just comparing who is the most competent captain in Starfleet. And it was like Sisko was a human being. He had a kid. He fell in love with Cassidy Yates. He went through his friendships with all the characters. And so for me, it was Sisko, because he was so well-rounded. Plus, Avery Brooks had just come off of Spencer for Hire. I don't know if you remember that TV show.
No. Who doesn't remember? What's his name? Avery Brooks. I think I know that name from somewhere. Spencer for Hire. He was... Here's something else I learned about Avery. I mean, not only did his manner of speech in Spencer for Hire was the strangest thing on television at the time. It was wonderful, and it made Hawk who Hawk was. But I then heard him play the piano and listened to his album of jazz.
Yeah.
Which is, for me, incomprehensible, because I'm not nearly smart enough to understand what the hell he's doing. He's on a different planet, and I
in so many ways.
Yeah, I think the name of the thing was either There. I think it was There. The name of his album. It was either There or Here. And I said, well, could I have one? He said, here you are. I said, oh, so here is there, is this here? And he said, I don't know, John. You can play it however you like.
What was it? What was it like working with Avery Brooks? Because you hear so many stories about he was demanding, he was into himself, he was quiet, he was aggressive. You hear so many things, and you don't know what to make of it, because he seemed to have so much range as an actor.
Yeah, he does. There are two things. Talk about specificity and being in the moment. he was. I had a scene with him later on in the series. I don't remember what, but that baseball on his desk, you know, baseball was there, and the scene was about textually. The scene was about some planning some attack on Rigel 4 or whatever it was. We were talking about strategy, but subtextually, what the scene was about is me trying to get that damn baseball into my hand and he not allowing me to get it. And we were both playing that game. The words, they had to have taken care of themselves because Avery was blocking me from getting my hand on that baseball, and it had nothing to do with the scene. But that's what it was about for us. But most importantly about Avery, in that early episode where both Colum and Renee and Avery had to get into Klingon makeup. They were in Klingon. Right. They were formed into Klingons. And Avery, they were in a cell. I had locked them into a cell of some sort with actual bars, not some sort of force field, actual bars. And you had to talk. Avery and I had a long scene. We had to talk through the bars. And because of the bars, if you move just that much, you lose the eye. And I only had one eye, so if the camera would not be able to see anything. So it was very delicate, and I had an immense amount of words. Meanwhile, Renee and Colum were in the background. They couldn't stand being in Klingon makeup, and they were. Lord knows what they were doing. They were either, mixing up blood wine, but they were laughing and telling jokes quietly, but distractingly. Because I was looking right at Avery, and right beyond them was Colum and Renee. And at one point, they got loud enough that Avery turned around to them and said, "Gentlemen, there is a man working up here. There is an artist working up here. You will pay attention." And they were like two little kids that had their hands caught in the cookie jar. And they just like, "Yeah, Dad." And, but he focused the set with just his voice, and we could get through the scene. You know, it was got a lot of power. That man. It's got a lot of power.
Yeah. Well, I'll never forget the first time I saw him on stage. It was like the first or second season of Deep Space Nine, and it was at a creation convention in Pasadena, in L.A. And he was on stage, and when he got on stage, the whole time, and he's so kind. I don't know how to say. He seems like he's out there, but he's always the way he is, and. Yeah. And everyone in the audience was like, "Say it, say it." And people who hadn't seen Spencer for Hire didn't know, what are you talking about? We want him to say Spencer. And so everybody, say it. And finally, he's laughing. He's like laughing and trying to hold us off. And finally, and then finally he looks at the audience and he goes, "Spencer," and it was just brought the house down. It was just such a great moment. But it was great also because, he had a lot of fans who had seen his work before. And when they announced him as the captain for Deep Space Nine, I was like, oh, that's going to be one badass captain, But what did he... And he was. Eventually he was. But he did it in such an understated way.
Well, it was interesting. He was also it's balanced with being a prophet. It's balanced with being this... otherworldly being. So you can't be just simply badass when you have to be godlike at the same time. He did a wonderful job, but the strength, the power of his presence is like Tony. Tony has immense presence.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Yeah. He does. All right, let's talk. Let's say first of all, we're going to just go Scott Hedrick, $70 super chat. Scott, you're amazing. Thank you so much. That is amazing. A wonderful donation. Thank you so much, Scott. You didn't ask a question or anything. Please jump in and ask a question. We'd love to have JG answer it. Barricade 74656, $20 super chat. When JG was first cast as Martok, did he know the character would be there for the long term? Thanks. There's a question for you.
No, no. It was a two-parter, and that was it. And I was scheduled. Let me think a second. I was scheduled to be the. I was blown up. I was dissolved as a founder because it was a fake Martok in the first two episodes, and a shapeshifter, and I thought that was the end. That was it, because that was the end of his character. Originally, I don't know how that character was scheduled to die, but the original shapeshifter was supposed to be Galron, but they said no, that's too easy. Galron is, he is that manipulative, sneaky kind of politician who would make sense that he's lying about who he is. But then they said no, that's too easy for us to go there. We'll make this other character Martok the shapeshifter and blow him up at the same time. He'll just have he'll have a better looking death because he just will dissolve into nothing. But then Ira came by and said, I guess it was before I was dead. He said, "You know what? We're gonna bring you back because it struck us." I came back maybe from one other episode. I can't remember. It must have been the second one of the last episode of the 4th season, I think, and the first episode of the 5th season was a two-parter. And then it must have come back 2 or 3 episodes later because Ira said, "Don't worry about it. We're going to bring you back because we realized that Worf now has a friend." So I don't know why Worf needed a friend, but I was his friend. And then I brought him into the House of Martok, which made him happy. But I thought it was 2 episodes, and that's it. And then they brought me back for 20 or 50 more. It seemed like I was very lucky. Very lucky.
Well, we're going to read a couple more. John Peter Preston, $20 super chat. Thank you, Peter. John Peter. What is the wonderful Welsh-sounding choral music in last week's D7 Ares duel video? You know what? I don't know, but Stogie knows. Stogie put that video together. So Stogie, our producer, John Streckis, who's up in New Jersey. John, why don't you answer that question in the chat? Because I have no idea. Fred Hensley, $10 super chat, says, would enjoy hearing JG's response to watching Galaxy Quest. I assume you've seen Galaxy Quest.
Oh, yeah, several times. I think it's a miracle of writing. I love Galaxy Quest because they make fun of what I have been doing for 20 years, 22 years, going to conventions. They make fun of it, and then they actually succeed in taking you on a real adventure. And then come back to that world that they make fun of at conventions. To accomplish that and not have people cynically looking at the middle part saying, oh, this is just bullshit. This is nothing. To make people believe in it, and I did. I mean, I'm a good story listener. I will. You give me a good story, and I am there. I don't pick it apart while I'm listening to it. I just go with you. Reach out, grab my hand, and take me. I'm there. And they did that. Galaxy Quest does that for me, and it also gives me the incredible. I mean, what's his name?
Alan Rickman.
He's gone now. Rickman, yeah. Alan Rickman with his Klingon-like headpiece peeling back and his hair coming out. I'm a Shakespearean actor. I just love it.
He was so good. It was such a good movie. Or so many.
And the Turkish actor.
Oh, Tony Shalhoub.
Tony Shalhoub, you know. And of course, the people are the we think you are wonderful. I don't know who those people were, but they're fabulous and unforgettable.
Yeah.
And Sigourney Weaver, you know, she was so ridiculously hot. It was, to me, it was just perfect. And you know, the Tool Man, I wanted to see him most of the time, but I just wanted to see a tool belt around his waist at times.
Tim Allen.
Tim Allen, yeah.
And it was also the first movie. It was really Justin Long's breakout role. That was his first, the young kid. He's the fan that Tim Allen basically blows off in the beginning and says, "It's fake. It's not real." You know.
Yeah.
And then you know, and then when he's in trouble in space, he calls him up and he goes, "Look, it's real. It's real." And Justin Long's like, "I knew it was real. I knew it."
oh yeah, he was in the computer. Absolutely. Yeah, I was. There were so many parts of it that work so well, and it's hard. It's hard to create anything that works that well in the sci-fi world. And I just bought right into it.
It was great.
Yeah.
We got another
huge fan of Galaxy Quest. I suppose they can't do Galaxy Quest 2, but I wish they could.
Well, they're doing Amazon's doing it as a streaming series. It's going
now.
Yeah, it's in production right now, is what I've heard. So I don't know the details. But
then,
yeah, it should be interesting. We've got Stephen Hughes, $25 super chat. I don't think you're going to be able to answer this question, but I'm going to. This is what we were talking about before we went on the air. So, is it true the Bat'leth was created after Kahless fought a horned bull-like beast to the death? Hence, the beast horns / skull was a template for Kahless's Bat'leth. Wow, dude, Stephen.
The original sword of Kahless was wood, and they had horns on both sides, where these things are. You know, these are the. Can you see it? These were bone horns, not originally steel. Bone horns, and this part was wooden with a lot of leather lacing and whatnot. The original sword of Kahless. Do you have the sword of Kahless?
I had it. I had one. There were. I think there were 2 heroes and 3 stunt ones made, and the stunt ones were black rubber painted. And I had one up until about 6 months ago, and then someone made me the stupidest, craziest offer, and it was my favorite prop. It was hanging in my office, and I was like, I can't say no that much money, you know. And nice. So I sold it. Okay. I'll have to cry into my Captain America shields.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, you enjoyed it for a while.
I did. It's just stuff, you know. It's just
remember Carlin, George Carlin, when you remember how much he said about stuff. We don't need all the stuff we have until we buy. We need more stuff.
And then we need bigger places to put our stuff.
Another place to put our extra stuff. What was I going to say? Something about the sword of Kahless. The legend is that he dropped he took a lock of hair from Kahless the Great when he was climbing the volcano. I don't know if the volcano had a name, but he threw a lock of hair, of his own hair, into the volcano, and what spurted back out was the first Bat'leth, the sword of Kahless. That lock of hair was transformed into a Bat'leth. And that's the only part of the story that I know. There's no writer that told me that, although I believe that I've read it somewhere. So I'm sure it's true.
So, okay, so let me just see if I think we're done with our super chats for now. Thank you, everyone who's donated tonight. Thank you very, very much. John, we talked so much about here about Star Trek, obviously, because that's what you're known for, and all our fans in Axanar love you for being Sam Travis, which I do want to talk to. But before we get to that, what's your favorite role that you've played outside of Star Trek? Because a lot of people don't know your work outside of Star Trek. You're a theater guy. You've done some really... You played Ridley Scott in the Pirates of Silicon Valley?
Words as Ridley Scott in Pirates of Silicon Valley. But to play Ridley Scott, I actually ran into Ridley Scott later, a few years later after it showed, and I passed him on the street in Burbank, and I said, Mr. Scott, he said, yes. First of all, I'm a huge fan, and secondly, I've done you. And he said, really? Huh?
It came out like that.
Yeah, it came out like that. I've done you, by the way. That was a real honor to be able to play Ridley Scott. But the best role, I think the most fun I had was Shylock, actually, on stage. But it's right up there with, actually my favorite Shakespearean, my favorite roles have got to be Shakespeare. But my favorite one was Richard, Duke of York, who's the father of, in the Henry VI, part 1, 2, and 3, and Richard III. He is the father of King Edward, later King Edward. He's the father of Richard III. And it's just a wonderful role that I had a great time playing, and I still do those speeches. If I audition for somebody, if they want Shakespeare, I still do the speeches from Richard Plantagenet, Duke of York. And I've been to York, and I saw where they had the head of Richard Plantagenet on a post during that War of the Roses when he was defeated. But anyway, that's my favorite role, Richard, Duke of York. Yeah.
We're going to, real quick, I'm going to go through a couple more. Everyone loves having you on, John. Batman donated £5 sterling to us. Thank you, Batman. The Batman. Thank you. And the Batman asks us, where did the inspiration for the Federation ships such as the Ares come from? I love the look, by the way. Batman, we did a whole little episode on the genesis of the Ares. If you look back, it's like the second episode of Axanar Confidential. Just look for it. And it's illustrated, and I talk all about it. So check that out. That is the best way to find out about the history of the USS Ares. Thank you very much for that question. Next, we got Silver Bullet 1620 gave us $5. He says, love your hat, JG. Love your work in Star Trek Online. You gave a great performance in the last Crazy Bug episode. Thank you. Adega Outlaw, one of our regulars, says, I think it's a record-sized attendance tonight. I think so. 185 people are watching us right now, JG. So, and by the way, JG is really your stage name. Do you prefer to go by John, or are you just used to going by JG?
You know, if you yell out John in a crowd, like at least 50% of the men will turn around, and I just couldn't stand being one of a 1,000 crowd of Johns. My dad's name was exactly the same. I was in line because the paternal aspect of my family had gone John, Noah, John, and I was in line for Noah. And I've always wanted to be Noah Hertzler. But my mother didn't like Noah. I don't know why. So I was stuck with my dad's name. So it was always, somebody calls at the house and is John here? Oh, Big John or Little John? I was always Little John.
I was always Little Alec because I'm a junior.
Yeah. You know the feeling.
Especially once you get taller than your dad and you're like, I'm not the little one here.
That's right. And my dad was sort of tiny. He was like a rooster. He was like a drill sergeant. He retired as a colonel in the Air Force, but he had the personality of a drill sergeant that was really strict. And but he was about 5'9", and I passed him and working out, lifting weights for football in college. I got pretty big, and I finally succeeded in accomplishing that. Hey, I am Big John.
Right. You talked about you talked about your dad in World War II, and I just and how that informed your performance in that one episode. And I have to tell you that, you know, I had an uncle, and he also flew. He flew in World War II. He was a B-17 pilot, and he flew like 40 missions or 50 missions. I forgot what it was.
He flew out of England, out of East Anglia.
Yeah.
Airborne and whatnot, yeah.
And he, and I remember so specifically. I mean, it was one of my most vibrant visual memories from my youth. Was talking to him, and he said he was telling us about flying in World War II, and he told me, he said, and then they sent me home. They pulled me out of the front lines, and they sent me home to be an instructor.
Right.
And he said, and it was the saddest day of my life. And I, as a little kid, you didn't quite understand that, right? And as you grow up, you understand what it was and what it meant for him to be with his team and to work with, you know, with his crew. And so I actually worked that into the full script for Axanar.
Right.
Because I was like, oh, this is how Robert April feels when they pull him off the front lines to put him in charge of the construction of the Enterprise.
Is there no way, Alec, to take the full script of Axanar and translate it out of the world of Star Trek and build that movie?
Everyone asks me that question.
I know.
Yeah, I know. Someone came to me with $5 million and said, hey, let's make this movie. Just take it, get rid of the Star Trek. We could do it. Certainly we could do it. I've always seen it as a Star Trek story because I always saw it as Garth of Izar's story. I've always been attached to that character, but yeah. But I think the fans will get enough that they'll be happy with what we do produce, which I think is great. And Batman again gives us another $2 sterling. It says, "What do you guys think of the Orville?" We covered that a little earlier, Batman, and John likes the Orville. I think I probably like it more than John.
I love the balance they've got between humor and reality. They accomplished the same thing Galaxy Quest accomplished. Adding so much humor, but not losing the sentiment. Really, you have to be involved emotionally with these characters, and if you're just making fun of each other, that doesn't happen. So they have to believe in one another, and so we can believe in them. And anyway, that's yeah. No. I really enjoy it. I just haven't seen enough. I've only seen 3 or 4 episodes.
And Crystal likes it too. Yes, Crystal. Crystal's a big Seth MacFarlane fan.
Yes.
She watches all his stuff. Family Guy and
American Dad.
Yeah, it's always on TV. It's always. So anyway, thank you, Batman. Let's see if we have any others. Val Tuger, $25 Canadian. Thank you. Love Canada. Hello to all my friends in Canada. I just love that country, guys. You guys, because of the people. The Canadians are just like the nicest. They really are. I mean, I know we joke about it a lot, but you guys really are the nicest people in the world. Whenever I spent 3 months in Vancouver working on the Battlestar Galactica auction, and my God, I loved every minute of it. My friends up there, we're going to hopefully go to visit them this year. It's just awesome. Michael Weir, another $20. Michael, you're too good to us. Thank you. You are the best, Michael Weir. I just hope we will get a copy of the original script for Axanar. Every donor is going to get a copy of the script. Absolutely. Every single donor.
Isn't Colicos Canadian? Wasn't he Canadian?
Yeah. Was he Canadian? I think he was.
And I wasn't William Shatner a Canadian?
Shatner's a Canadian, yep.
Isn't Jimmy Doohan?
Jimmy Doohan is Canadian. Flew in World War II for Canada.
Yeah. Yeah. The Canadians are almost as bad as the Brits. They come down here. They take all the work because they're too goddamn good.
Yeah, Smokey Mirrors confirms that Colicos was Canadian.
Yeah,
he was great. And no, I don't think Leonard Nimoy was Canadian.
No,
Leonard Nimoy was born and raised in L.A. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure. Was it L.A. or he moved to L.A.? No, he was Bostonian, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. If someone knows exactly, it was Nimoy. I want to say he was from Boston, but I could be wrong. Someone look that up, will you?
We have an agreement. He was from Boston.
Nimoy and Shatner were both Jewish. Maybe that's why you're thinking, since Shatner was from Canada, that's maybe why you think Nimoy was Canadian. So Boston, Navy Store. My good friend Navy Store, one of my gaming buddies, who I don't play with anymore. We play World of Warships. Navy Store confirms Boston. Yeah, Michael Carter says Boston. Nimoy was raised in Boston, and then he moved. I remember seeing his like second to last convention at Las Vegas a few years ago. God, he was telling the same story he told a gazillion times, but it moved him to tears. It was yeah. He was.
Yeah, I think I was at that convention with. Nimoy. Somebody said we did a panel, all the actors that were there. Bob and I were at the very end. Nimoy, I think, was in the middle of this panel. But somebody said, one of the reporters or journalists or whatever, the writers out there said, it's pretty well accepted that Deep Space Nine is the best written of all the series. And I'll ask this question, and Nimoy said, well, it's very good to hear that Deep Space Nine was the best written of all the series. It's an interesting comment. I don't immediately agree, but I'm sure I could be worked around. But it's funny to hear Nimoy say that, because he did, anyway. What did I just see him? Oh, in Fringe. He's all through. He is.
Yes.
Yes.
Billy.
Yeah, Billy Bell. Yeah, Bill Bell. With John Noble, and I didn't know who John Noble was until I saw him.
He's so good.
Oh, he's so good.
Yeah.
But
I read.
Nimoy, wow, because I didn't watch it when it was originally produced. I just watched it about 2 months ago. For the first time. All the episodes.
Patrick Santucci. Patrick Santucci. So that's a good melting pot name. An Irish first name with an Italian last name. Patrick, thank you so much. Darkulik, $10 super chat. Thank you for the well wishes, sir. We greatly appreciate it. I was at Dan Tana's Italian restaurant on Santa Monica Boulevard in West Hollywood, which is, for those of you who aren't from LA, it's a legendary restaurant, Italian restaurant, and it's just like old school New York Italian restaurant, right? Like you can easily see the mafia hang out at this place. And I was at the bar, and the first time I was at Dan Tana's, Al Pacino was there, and then I think it was the second or third time I was there, and I'm sitting at the bar, and I turn around, and John Noble is standing right there at the door. And he's so brilliant, but I didn't want to bother him. He was out to dinner, so I didn't say anything to him. But I really wanted John Noble. After Jeffrey Combs said no to the role of Moreau, the Klingon, I wanted John Noble to play that role. And I was like, oh, come on, I bet I could get John Noble. I mean, he's probably a closet Star Trek fan. Right.
I would think he would be. And he's wacky enough to just do it. We're going to shoot it in a day? That's excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I that's kind of one of the advantages of doing what we're doing. It's like, I kind of feel I can get anyone for a day in LA.
Sure.
It's like, I'm going to pay you nothing, but I'm going to feed you really well, and we're going to treat you like gold. How's that? Just come in.
No, you didn't pay people nothing, Alec. You paid people handsomely for the professionalism they brought to it. And I really think that is what lifts, that is at least part of what lifts everybody in charge of a department, whether it be the actors in charge of themselves, or the hair department, or the costume department, or the camera department, or the grip, everything was headed up in the most professional way. And that, to me, not just to me, to everybody, it made the difference in that being a professional, completely professional production, as opposed to fan dramas, which are, it's so easy to destroy a scene with a costume that's wrong, or a lighting that's bad, or the sound that's wrong, or the bad delivery of a line. It is so easy to ruin it. And everything was fabulous. There wasn't anything. in Prelude.
Well, thank you, sir, and we certainly hope to replicate it. I think we set the bar, and we've got to exceed it this time. It's, as you and I have talked about it. Paul Jenkins, our director, talked about it. It's got to be better than Prelude to Axanar, in every regard. So
also have changed. So much has happened. I mean, just look at the White House, for heaven's sake. What's happened in the world?
Please, I'd rather not.
The zeitgeist has moved. So, there's a new zeitgeist. There's a new cultural spirit. There's a new awareness of other things. So that's what you'll tap into, I'm sure.
Well, we have a bunch of questions. People are asking me about the costume back there.
Yeah.
There. That is Garth's costume. That is Steve Einat's costume from Whom Gods Destroy. I got it back in 2010. The medals are reproduction. It just came. The costume itself came. It didn't come with the multicolored boots, but and that is my pride and joy. There's like 3 things in this house that I'm going to run out with if the house ever catches on fire. After Crystal and the 3 dogs, then that's one of them. Right. So I guess I got to take.
Better be in the costume.
Yeah, leave the dogs and grab your shit. Run.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it's close to the door. JG, you didn't. I don't think you got the chance. So when we were at Axanar, the widow of Steve Einat came, and along with. Did you see? Did you see?
I saw her speak. There were 2 ladies up there, and I don't know.
Linda Alexander, who wrote the biography of Steve.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they were very special.
Yeah,
that was a panel.
Yeah, and it was great. It was really just it tied everything we're doing back to Steve and to that episode. And Sally, his widow, told us so much about. He was a filmmaker. He wasn't just an actor. He's a very hot actor at the time. He was in everything. And then, but he was also a filmmaker, and he died at Cannes, which I didn't know, where he was showing off this independent film that he had produced. And so,
do you remember the name of it?
Oh no, I'll dig it up though. Do you have a copy of? I'll have Linda send you a copy of her book about Steve.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I think we're gonna try and do a special edition for Axanar. But it was wonderful to have her there and to talk about. She was so complimentary about what we were doing and of Prelude, and she really felt that it was. She told us that she felt that if Steve was alive, he would be so proud of what we were doing. And
rightfully so.
Yeah, and that was
his character that he created, and built an entire movie on it, basically.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it literally is because of him. This whole thing is, it could have been another actor that I might not have resonated with. That he, but that he just, at the end, it's really like a minute and a half at the end of the episode. That's what inspired me, and that's all him. And it's so. Anyway, it was wonderful to have her there. So, and we had the costume there, and she said, she said to me, she said to the panel, she was in the panel, and she said, and I pointed out the costume, and I said, "Oh, this is Steve's costume," and she said, "Yeah," she said, "I know." She says, she said, his DNA is in that costume, and I was like. I never really thought about that. And she said, and now your DNA is in it, and now your DNA is mixed with his. And I was like, wow, that was really powerful. It just got me, it was really moving. I was just, to think of that. So,
there's like 3 people I would love to have shaken their hands. One was Muhammad Ali, and I didn't get a chance. The other was Laurence Olivier, which I'd love to, shake hands and trade some DNA. And the third was Mickey Mantle, which I got close to Mickey because I have his autograph from My dad took me to a doubleheader in New York the day Mickey's number was retired. Joe Pepitone was the quote-unquote Yankee star at those times.
Yeah, I remember.
But Mickey Rooney did a tour all the way around on a golf cart, all the way around the stadium and along the wall. And I just remember that so vividly. And that's when I got a baseball signed by the Mick. And so I got a chance to do one of that, but I'm sorry I missed Muhammad Ali, and I'm sorry I missed Olivier.
Wow. Well, yeah, you don't shoot low with Olivier.
Yeah.
That's and Muhammad Ali, arguably the two greatest in their profession of all time, right?
Exactly.
And Mick, one of the greatest baseball players of all time.
Right. Yeah, but he was, I can remember sitting in the front porch of my house in suburbs of Washington, D.C., Hillcrest Heights. And in 61, I was 11, and sitting listening to the battle, between he and Maris, and as the Yankees were, fighting towards the pennant again. But it was a race between Roger Maris and Mickey Mantle. One of my great memories of my boyhood in that house in Hillcrest Heights, because we lived in the military. My dad was as I said, in the military. We lived all over the place. But I remember those steps and that summer listening to those games with the Yankees. And I'm still a Yankees fan. I should have my Yankees hat on. But
well, I'm a Mets fan. And I like you, I remember the summer of 69 and the fall of 69. I was in third grade.
The amazing Mets.
The amazing Mets. Yep. There was a time where I could name the entire starting lineup. I don't think I can do it anymore. But
Tom Seaver's time, wasn't it? Tom Seaver pitching there.
Tom Seaver, yeah, exactly. And who else was It was, I guess, I'm trying to think if he had been traded at that point. But I think he had been traded. But Nolan Ryan started out as a New York Met.
Man, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah. I have his rookie card, and he's in a Mets uniform.
Wow.
That's great. So we.
Ralph, who was the coach
for the Mets? Gil Hodges.
In 69, Gil Hodges?
Gil Hodges, yep.
Oh, wow.
Yep, wow. Gil Hodges, yeah. And, that was a great team. But, oh, gosh, the other thing I was going to... What was the other thing? I had another story that you touched on, and I forget it. I'll remember in a moment. Super chat from MC... Oh, Puznaret. Forgive me if I pronounce your name wrong. Anyway, thanks so much for the hard work on Axanar, JG. You're the very best. So, MC, thank you very much. I'm sure. JG, do you want to thank MC?
Yeah, absolutely. MC, what's the I can't think of the rapper, the guy, the big hip hop guy.
MC Hammer?
MC Hammer, yeah. MC Hammer. It wasn't MC Hammer, is it?
No, unless he's incognito.
Can't touch this. Well, thank you, MC. I as an actor, you do your best and hope that you survive, basically, because there's a lot of people out there in any art that want to say, you stink. It is so hard to get past that, because you hear that out of 100, you hear that 99 out of 100, and then that last person says, that was incredible. And that keeps you going, So
thank you, MC. Then we have Warpig Connors just sent us $20. He doesn't have anything to say, but Warpig, thank you so much. That's very generous of you. And just so you guys know, every time we get donations, they go to maintaining the studio. So thank you very much. We appreciate it. And then Michael S. I'm sorry, JG. You were going to say? Warpig Connors.
Warpig. I love that. I'm sorry. For War Pig!
There you go, War Pig.
England, St. George, and War Pig!
And then we have Michael S. Carter, one of our loyal followers, $10 super chat. Hello to all. Greetings and felicitations. Will you both be attending Dragon Con this year? JG, are you coming to Dragon Con by any chance?
Nobody. They haven't invited me, as far as I know. So
we got to get you down. We got to get you down here. Bob
and I've done it a couple times. quite a few years ago, though.
Well, maybe we'll find out. And he says, "How about Crystal as well?"
Yes.
Well, Crystal and I go every year.
Yes.
Sure. All right.
Crystal in her wonderful costumes.
Yes, the last time I was at Dragon Con, there were the 4 or 5 ladies that had their bikinis painted on them. They actually were wearing nothing. They just had paint.
Just one.
And they were everywhere in that hotel. They were, so is that...
You gotta love Dragon Con.
Well, the first time I was there, there was a Salvation Army convention at the same time Dragon Con was going on. So there was a Salvation Army band marching down Peachtree Street or whatever it is, followed by all kinds of bizarre, otherworldly creatures, and the streets were lined with dinosaurs and Zor, Gorns, and anyway, it was a bizarre thing to see, and I don't know how they did that. The Salvation Army with their gray uniforms, huge.
They were probably just leading them because they have a parade every Saturday. There's the Dragon Con parade, so the Salvation Army was probably kicking it off. That was.
I think so. I don't. But the oddest thing was in Fantasticon in L.A. Early on, one of the very first conventions I did, because it was in L.A., there was a Abraham Lincoln convention going on at the same time.
Oh my
so
God.
there were 300 guys dressed as Abraham Lincoln at the same time the Star Trek convention was going on. And that was fabulous. I don't see that much anymore.
You don't see many Abraham Lincoln conventions.
You don't see that many.
It's kind of fallen out of favor these days. But by the way, MC, as I called him, MC Puzneret, it stands for Master Chief Petty Officer, USN Retired.
Oh,
MCPOUSNRET. There you go.
So we can call you Chief then, huh?
Yeah, I guess. Call him Chief. Call him Chief. And I'm going to scroll up because we missed someone else. We don't want to miss any super chats. Someone fell. No. You think we got them all?
No, I think we got them all.
Think we got them? Okay. All right. Let me just scroll down. Make sure we don't miss. And guys, listen to all our wonderful fans, the 185 that are watching. We do not have this time. I have no time to read all the comments, so forgive us if we're missing your question or something. But keep trying. Warpig Connor says. Warpig is a veteran of security forces. Veteran equals war, security forces equals pig. Okay. We'll buy that.
How can you doubt that?
Yeah. The podcast, this is probably my good friend Brian, my new friend Brian, I should say, from the podcast. If you guys don't watch the podcast, you should. He says, haven't been to a Star Trek convention in over 8 years, because that's because you've got twin girls. That's why. And you're probably not seeing movies either, and you're going to have no social life until you kick them out of the house when they go to college. So, love you, Brian, but we'll fill you in on all the social things that happen while your girls are in high school, making you lose your hair. And Charles Williamson, one of our loyal fans, is here too. And there's Smoke and Mirrors says 3 Discovery fans watching, Alec. So I guess half of them are watching us. Huh? So we have a lot. There's a lot of veterans who are Star Trek fans. Okay. So, all right. Let's get to this because I know all the fans are going to want to know, JG, and tell us about, because I know the answer, of course. You and I have talked about it. But one of the great things about Prelude to Axanar was we were able to create unique Star Trek characters. And in a way, creating Karn was a lot easier than creating Sonia Alexander or Sam Travis or Admiral Ramirez. Because there's always something uniquely interesting about an alien, right? And Richard and I were able to spend so much time. He lived right around the block from me. We spent so much time at Aroma Cafe talking about Karn and who he was and all the Klingon influences. But you did Sam Travis, and we talked about him a little bit, but tell all the fans how you developed Sam Travis and when people see Sam Travis on screen, how did you come up with that character? Because he is in many ways exactly what I wanted Sam Travis to be. You imbued him with such potency.
Well, that's me, Mr. Potent. The thing about Sam that I wanted to be able to do was to show that he was basically a quote unquote a common man who had achieved some sort of greatness in his life, not recognized, but greatness. Maybe if you look back and see who was that guy, but it reminded me. My basis was Chuck Yeager. I really wanted to build him after the most famous test pilot in the in the entire NASA program, the X-15 pilot, Chuck Yeager. And I never saw. It's funny. I never saw him looking like Sam. What's his the writer? Sam. Who's
Shepard.
the writer?
Shepard.
Yes, Shepard in The Right Stuff.
Right.
The Right Stuff.
Yeah.
Chuck Yeager in. I never saw him looking like that. I saw him looking in the pictures that I knew of Chuck Yeager with the butch haircut, the sort of a fleshy face, and but hard as a Texas, a rock cooking out in the desert in Texas. And I really wanted to try it, and then I tried to put that together with Samuel Travis, the hero at the hero, that one of the last remaining officers. I think he was sick with typhoid fever or something. Didn't he have a tremendous fever?
I think you're right. I think that sounds familiar.
And I think Richard Widmark played that role in John Wayne's The Alamo. But I really wanted to make him sure he was a common man of common roots with no great education. He didn't come from the Ivy League. He came from some high school in maybe San Antonio. And he ascended through, as people could in the old days. You didn't have to have credential after credential. You just had to be good at what you do. And you get better and better and better. Then there's nobody better. But he's a humble man, a slow talker, and not having control of too many words. He used he didn't say much. It's like not worth spit. I love that, and I loved you allowed me to add a couple to cut through some of the more lengthy comments and reduce it to 3 or 4 words. He was a man of few words, which I'm not being right now, but that's what I wanted Travis to be. Wisdom in the least amount of words possible, and
he was an old warhorse. That's right. I probably told you that. That was probably one of the few things I said was that's how I see him, and he comes through that way. Like he's been there and he's done it and he's seen it all, and and so it's a testament to his resilience that he's still around. But he also sees through all the bullshit, and he doesn't suffer. Right? Yeah. He doesn't suffer fools.
You're right about that. That's the thing. Doesn't suffer fools. And man, if I could have, I've suffered so many fools in my life because I was too worried about leaving a bad impression. I wish I had not done that. It's the secret to success. Don't suffer fools, whether you're young or old or in between. Just say and do what you believe, and stay with it. And anyway.
No, I agree, and it was wonderful. So you really made that character indelible, and I thought that Kate did such a wonderful job with Sonia Alexander because she's a very different captain, but
it was a great group, Alec. It was a great group you put together. Kate and Gary and myself and the other, Richard, of course. I'm trying to think of somebody else. It wasn't just.
It was Gary, Kate, you, me, Tony Todd.
Yeah, but Tony didn't go out with us and hang much.
No, he
but the rest of us sort of really, really enjoyed each other's company and had a great time. And I think that it was because of the show that we came together. Because I didn't know Gary very well. I didn't know Kate at all, and I knew Richard very little. I'd done a couple little things for him, Magellan Wars, where I did something, and his attempt to do something with Battlestar. And I kept telling him, I said, don't fight that in City Hall, Rich. Don't fight that City Hall. Just get out of their franchise. Do your own thing, because they're not going to pay attention, Anyway.
No, yeah, you're right.
Great. Yeah.
You should be telling me that.
It's hard. It's really hard because you have one of the things about Star Trek that hasn't really been plumbed yet, I don't think. The fan base is international. It's enormous, and you should be able to do just about anything and have an audience, because of Star Trek. The fan base is still so large. Other conventions try to start up about things. They last maybe a year or two, and they're gone. This is 50-some years later,
Yeah, no, you're right. Lynn Marie Panzerino, who is one of our loyal donors. Thank you very much, Lynn. She gives us $10 and says, "Hi, Alec and Axanar family. Looking forward to seeing everyone at the next Axanar convention. AxaCon 2019, hopefully it'll be at the end of this year after we've shot Axanar. JG, and I will tell you that Paul Jenkins, our director and co-writer, is watching tonight. Hopefully he's still up. He's got young kids, so he may have gone to bed. But Paul's been watching, and Paul and I have been talking about, what we're going to shoot in LA and what we're going to shoot here in Atlanta and what we're going to do first. So being that you're in New York, we may have you shoot down here in Atlanta. It might be easier. Sean Lane, $5 Super Chat, says, "Hey, JG, which show did you like doing the most on Star Trek Deep Space Nine?" So I guess he's saying, which episode was your favorite?
I think there were two, really. Once More Into the Breach with John Colicos, and that was huge. And also Soldiers of the Empire. That was directed by LeVar Burton. And LeVar did a great job at directing. And he said, let's make this a Kirk shot. Let's make this a captain's chair shot. Which means they move the camera way down to the bottom and shoot up as if the captain is a god, And and then he came up to me and he said, "It's just amazing, JG, what you can get, the amount of emotion you can get out of just that one eye." He said, "It really." I said, "LeVar, what the hell are you talking about? You didn't have any eyes, and people love how much emotion Geordi had." So he said, "Oh yeah, that's true." But anyway, those two.
Well, Warpig Connors, your buddy, your Warpig war cry got him to give us another $50.
Wow.
So thank you. Warpig is in Houston. He says you'll need to come to visit Houston. Well, Warpig, we were in Houston in 2014 or 15. I forgot when that was. We were down in Houston, and it was JG and Kate and me, and Gary was there, and Tony was there. But we were all there for Houston Con or Space City Con or whatever it was down there, and we had a good old time. We went out to that. Remember, we went out to that steakhouse.
Oh yeah, that's right. What was that? A steakhouse? It was a barbecue place.
Barbecue? Was it barbecue?
Yeah.
Barbecue?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so anyway, so thank you, Warpig. When next time we're in Houston, we will let you know. Stay tuned because we might be driving through there in the near future. So thank you very much. I think that's it on that. And then, and our director, Paul Jenkins, who's been watching, sent me a text message, and he said, "I'm not sure if JG can beat my blood wine story." He says, his blood wine had vodka and fucking meat in it.
That's fabulous.
That doesn't sound very appetizing to me, but
it reminds me of chunky milk. You know that chunky milk. I love that chunky blood wine. That would be a great recipe. I agree with you. You got me there, man.
Oh God!
You win.
By the way, I have to tell you, you were talking about Ridley Scott before, and I have to tell you that probably my all-time great geek story is Ridley was shooting Prometheus, the first of his Alien prequels,
right.
And I got invited over to pitch him. You know, I have a company called PropWorks. We're an auction house, and we do Hollywood memorabilia auctions. And we had done Battlestar Galactica, and we had done Stargate, and I had a friend who worked for him and pitched him on us doing an auction for Prometheus. And Ridley loved the idea, and he said, "Oh yeah," he said, "have him come over." And he says, "This is a great idea." And so he told my friend that on Monday, and on Wednesday I flew over to London. They were shooting over at Pinewood over there, and so I got on Thursday. I get on set, and they were in this huge spaceship set that was on a gimbal. It was
Nice.
So I was there, and I was hanging out, watching them shoot, and everything was great. And then at one point, my friend's like, he's ready to see you, right? And he had like a section out on the outskirts of this gimbal. He had a section, a little partition that was his area. Now it was being shot in 3D. So he had like multiple big screen TVs there set up, and there were like 3 director's chairs. And so I go up, and he's up there, and he goes, and he comes up to me, and he was such a gentleman. He takes my hand and says, "Alec, thank you so much for flying over." He says, "I'm so excited about this project." And he takes a pair of 3D glasses, and he says, "Here, sit in my chair. I want to show you my movie." I was like, this is geek heaven. I mean, I just like died and went to geek heaven. It was just the greatest moment of my geek life. It was just amazing. So that's my Ridley Scott story.
Is it Pinewood?
Pinewood, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, I was visiting a friend, Ian Ross. Do you know Ian Ross?
I do not.
Ian Ross is a collector of. He bought Martok's costume from Christie's.
Ah.
So, and Ian, he's a sort of a smaller guy. He had to alter it to fit him, but anyway, I would stay with Ian and his wife on occasion when I go over there, because they're great people. They live down towards Windsor. But I said, "What about Pinewood Studios? Have you ever been to Pinewood?" They said, "No." I said, "Do they give tours or whatnot?" They said, "No." So I called them up, and they said, "No, we don't have tours." I said, "Well, I'm a SAG actor from America, and I'm over here, and I'd like to come by." They said, "Well, sure, come on by." So I went to the gate. There was only one major gate, and I signed in, and they said, "Okay, go ahead." It was a self-guided tour through Pine Studios, and we just walked into any set that was going. It was, they just didn't have people visiting. And I said, "Well, what about a gift shop? Do you have any?" They said, "No, we don't really." I said, "Well, don't you sell anything like shirts or?" They said, "Well, we have stuff the crew gets." So I said, "Well, I'll buy one of those." And so I have it's Pinewood, Teddington, and Twickenham Studios, on the back. But Pinewood on the front. So I still have that. But Pinewood, it's not like they make movies there. They don't give tours.
Yeah, it's not Paramount.
That's right.
It's not Paramount. No. Yeah, actually, I was there also I spent a week on the set of Captain America, the first Avenger, the first Captain America movie. I was there, and I think I got that print. That's from that's concept art from Captain America, right above the Captain America shield from Captain America. So, yeah. So it's a great studio. It really is.
I've never been to. I did Zorro in Spain, and most of the actors came over from England. Most of the day players would come over from England to do little roles on Zorro, the series, in 90 and 91, I guess, while I was there in Madrid. And one of the actors that came over was Daniel Craig. He was about 22 years old,
Really?
handsome young man, and he came over to do just this little role, and had a major sword fight with James Bond, the young James Bond.
Did you really?
Yeah, because I was the bad guy. I was the military governor of Los Angeles, the military mayor, and I was chasing Zorro every episode. Couldn't catch him, but yeah, Daniel Craig was over there, and Tim Reed. Who else was there from England? Quite a few, like substantial names, English actors.
Well, and one of our viewers, Necro Globule, says, "Holy crap, that was you on Zorro," meaning you, JG. I love that show. So there's a fan for you who knows you from Zorro.
Yeah, I did. I did the first 2 years. The first 2 seasons was Michael Tylo, and then he just really hated Spain. He didn't like doing it, so it opened up, and I went to read for the role, and I think it was at Fox. I think the audition or the interview was with the producers was at Fox, 20th Century Fox, and they said, well, all right, here's the thing. The problem is this shoots in the outskirts of Madrid, in the wilderness area there. Is that going to be a problem? I said, well, let me think. No, I'm there. It was just so odd to be offered a role like that. And they paid, incredibly well. I was a regular. The only problem was I was the Alcalde's office. I was the Alcalde. The Alcalde's office was the rain set. If it rained, which it doesn't in Spain, but if it rained, we would adjourn to my office. So every scene that was written for 30 episodes, I had to know, because it could rain any day and we'd go to my office. So I had to keep all these scenes in my head. Anyway, but on the other hand, I had a horse. And if I could say to the director, who was also the producer, Ray Austin, I could say, Ray, do you mind if I take Amapola out for a ride? I'm not in any more scenes today. And he said, oh, sure, go ahead. And I could just gallop off into the wilderness with my horse.
Wow.
It was fabulous.
Wow.
And I was so used to being on a horse at the end of every summer, because we shot like from end of March, April to September. And by the end of I really felt bad not being on a horse, because I was almost always on horseback. And it's really seductive to be 14 feet tall, and that's your view of the world.
Crystal left, but Crystal's a big horse rider. She would appreciate it. Maybe she'll take you horse riding next time you're in Atlanta.
Oh, I love that. I love it. I was thinking about doing it around here. Problem is, you can't go. You can't just say, you mind if I gallop off into the... You can't. They don't even sometimes like the horses to run. They don't even like them to gallop. But maybe Crystal. Maybe she would. Yeah,
she's an old pro at it. Brian Bartlett, who gave us a $2 super chat, said, JG, will Gronk be back next year? I don't know. Is that a reference?
Well, he didn't look like he was too wounded in the Super Bowl. He had that spectacular catch that ended up 1 yard short of a touchdown. I wish he could have gotten that touchdown. The thing about the Patriots are they're a no-name team, except for Tom Brady. You really don't know anybody else. Who would have thought that Julian Edelman, he sounds like an accountant. My accountant, Julian Edelman, was, most valuable player in the Super Bowl. He's the toughest guy on the field. But they're basically a no-name team. And somehow Belichick and Brady and whomever make them look, somehow they succeed in winning. And it's a sad. I like Brady because he reminded me of Joe Montana, sort of a tall, skinny guy with no particular athletic talent, except that he's a winner. He's accurate. He knows the field. He understands what's going to happen before it happens. He's a general. And he's like Hannibal out there. He can't be defeated. And anyway, even when he was defeated. He had 505 yards, passing, and somehow they lost the game. But not this time. They won. Yeah.
Someone asked if you have any memorabilia from your time on Deep Space Nine. Did you keep anything?
I have my pants.
That's it. Your pants?
I have my Klingon pants. Not really. The prop guys gave me a bunch of latinum and those little gold coins, coins, and Dabo chips with Armin's face on them. With
right.
Quark's.
Yeah.
I used to have a lot of those, but I gave them away to people as gifts. I didn't know what I was doing. If I had some idea what I was doing, I would have a warehouse full of stuff.
Yeah, yes, you would have. Yes, you would. Well, awesome. And let's see what else we have. God, I have to say, JG, this is the best attended Axanar Confidential yet. You've broken the records. Everyone's here to see you and excited. Oh, we just got another super chat. KZ Bay, $20, says, since my first donation went to the lawyers, I figured I should re-up the donation for the episodes. Thank you, KZ. Actually, it didn't go to the lawyers. The lawyers were free. Your money went to the studio, but CBS wasted it nonetheless. But we do thank you very much for every dollar helps, because at some point I got to stop spending my own money on this project and spend it on some other things.
As long as you keep doing projects, unless you have a benefactor, a multi-millionaire sometime, you're always going to be spending your money on the projects, because they're as important to nobody else as important as they are to you. And so you'll always, that's what we do. That's what we do.
No, that's true. That's true. Yeah, it's got to be done. And of all the stuff I have that I've sold to fund Axanar and to fund the studio and everything.
Yeah.
I've had some good stuff. I've sold Captain Kirk's tunic from the original series. I've sold some really great stuff, some great costumes. All my captains. I don't miss any of it.
Right.
If the choice is dying with stuff or having a legacy like Axanar, I'd rather have I'll be when the Axanar's done and it's a trilogy, then.
Right. Let me ask you something about the. You said you have you have Travis's costume.
Yeah.
Did you have to buy those costumes?
We had those manufactured. We actually had those made.
Oh, you did, didn't you? I assumed.
Yeah.
Even though I knew you were having them made, I assumed they would go into their costume collection. But you kept them.
I kept them because I figured we might need to use them again. So so yes, I still have your costume, and Ramirez's was ruined because it went to the dry cleaner and the dry cleaner ruined it.
My Lord.
Did Michael Weir give us another $20? Michael, you're out of control. We love you. Michael Weir just gave us another $20. He said, "I wonder how much CBS would sell the Star Trek rights for." Probably $1 billion is my guess.
I think it's more than that. I mean, think how much movies cost now.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know. That's a good question.
Films make $2 billion.
Not Star Trek films. Star Trek films lose money lately. JJ's films all lost money. So
JJ Abrams, he was the writer on Fringe, right?
Yeah,
Fringe,
that's his show. Yeah.
It was incredible.
Yeah, it was a great show. JJ does TV. I think JJ does TV better than he does movies. Alias, Fringe, those are really good shows. Are you an Alias fan?
Yeah.
Yeah, Alias is great.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I never saw Alias.
That's good.
Yeah, Alias is
That's
great.
really good. Yeah.
So, to OB Bopper.
To BB Bopper.
To BB Bopper.
Something.
$25 Canadian. Thank you. Again, love our Canadian friends. Where I always love to know. Tell me where you're from.
Canada. Stop coming down to Los Angeles. Just stay there in Canada.
Except Canadian actors, you guys stay up there. Everyone else we love.
Yes.
Stay up there in Canada. Exploring Fate, another $5. He says, I can see JG in a Western riding on a horse, like Matt Dillon, Jason McCord, or Paladin.
Dylan, really?
I did a lot of horseback riding. I wish I had the. I should have brought it along. I'm gonna do a convention in. Where am I going? Minnesota in about a week, and I'm gonna take some. My actor's reel. I said these agents, my agents, they're not the same agents I have now. I have a wonderful agent in Los Angeles. The agents I had when I was doing Zorro, they said they're looking for somebody to play. I think it was Buffalo Bill. I forget what the project was. It wasn't Euro Disney, but I said, well, that's perfect. I mean, look at me, and they said, well, they need somebody that's very active, like can ride and sword fight. I said, what do you think I've done for the last 40 years? You know, and I made a reel, an actor's reel of all the action stuff I've done. It's like sword fight after horseback. I'm galloping and firing, and Zorro is disappearing into the. And I said, here, this is for you. Look, that's me. You know. Anyway.
Well, we've got a Kooky 2K2, $10 super chat. It says, Kapla Chancellor Martov.
Kapla 2K2. Kapla.
And then Bernie EOD, $5 super chat. EOD as an explosive ordnance disposal. Bernie, are you an EO? I always like EOD guy. Have you seen the EOD shirt? It says I'm explosive ordnance disposal team. If you see me running, try and keep up.
Good.
That's my favorite. So, okay, I think Stogie's trying to tell me something. Let's see what he has.
The cigar smoker, I take it.
What's that?
Is Stogie a cigar smoker? I take it.
I don't know. Yes, Stogie. He says, turn your mic down a bit. Well, you're reverbing. Really? I don't know why. The mic is so far away from me. Maybe that's the problem. Or it shouldn't be this, because I've got this mic off. Alec, tell JG about... Oh, yeah. Stogie has a horse farm. His family does horse rescue.
Where is he?
He's in New Jersey. So maybe you can get... I'll hook you guys up, and maybe you can go ride horses with him sometime.
Absolutely. I would... we're very... we live in New York. We're very close to New Jersey. Some of my best friends are in New Jersey. Wow. Yeah. Definitely hook us up.
And then... let's see. And then Brian Bartlett, $5 super chat. Thank you very much. Let's see. Are there any good questions for JG?
Let me ask Crystal a question.
Go.
Crystal, do you ride English or Western?
Oh, I'm sorry, she can't. So, JG wants to know if you ride English or Western.
Both. And I taught both.
You taught both? I was saying after when shooting Zorro, almost the entire summer was spent on horseback. So by the end of the summer, I really resented having to get off the horse and walk anywhere. It's so slow.
Here we go.
In shooting Zorro, almost all summer long, I was on horseback.
Oh, such an epic film.
Yeah, at the end of the summer, when you have to get off the horse and walk, life is so freaking slow and low to the ground. I just hate it.
It feels weird. It feels like the only way I could describe it is if somebody had ridden a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And then you feel it right after. It takes you a minute to get used to or get off a treadmill or something. Right. But your body's in a completely different...
absolutely.
Yeah.
Plus, with a horse, you have that visual perspective of you're looking down at everybody else's head. You
get used to. Yeah.
The perspective is wonderful.
It is.
Anyway, so hopefully we'll get a chance to ride together sometime.
I would love to. I lost my. I got to keep my horse. I got him when I was 12.
Oh wow.
He was big. He was 17 hands, so I got used to big real fast. And for those who don't know, 17 hands goes up to their shoulders, and if you're good at math, that's about 4 inches.
Yeah, it's
per head. It's up there. It's like this if you're 12, especially if you're me and you're 12. I lost him after 20 years, But
so what was he? Was he gated? Was he English or?
he was a throwaway from the racetrack.
Wow.
Yeah, he never raced. He was bred for it, and horrible flexion, which means for those who don't know, that's somebody who couldn't stretch and do a big stride in spite of being big. So we found him a few years later. He's about 300 pounds underweight, horrible teeth, could barely eat. And my parents bought him for me at my aunt's insistence. He was not trained. He was green. Brakes and steering not installed. So my aunt found that very amusing to throw me up on him. I learned to hold on real fast or you fall. And I had been riding for a few years at that point, but not like I had to learn how to ride him.
Well, that's a giant horse, 17 hands.
He was huge.
He
was huge. It was a long way to the ground. And we I used him for trail rides at a ranch that I worked at. He was the only thoroughbred in the entire barn, but we were primarily training for jumpers, and he ended up becoming a champion jumper. He won a few classes. Not bad for a horse that I got for like $1,000.
Yeah, he could step over the jumps.
Well, because of his flexion, 3.6, 3.9 was about his limit in a show. I think 3.6 would be more accurate, and the highest I ever showed was a little more than 4 feet. And I swear that's a big deal for anybody not listening. It's a big deal. But yeah, my first job was assistant trainer, and that just meant that I was the gopher for the trainer. And then I got another job helping to train kids to learn Western. So
it's an absolutely wonderful feeling when you and the horse are one. Yeah. You're not fighting the rhythm, you're in the rhythm, and it's an incredible feeling.
And I had my moments with him. He was just incredibly unique. But now that I'm riding again, and I think a lot of people will relate to this in their own, if they're a little bit older and they're coming back into something. I'm 36 next month. And I've gotten back in the saddle a few times since my show days when I was a teenager in early 20s. And coming back into it...
What are you doing in the shows?
I was doing predominantly English. I only did a couple of Western shows for fun. So it was...
Let's go through. JG, we're going to have to get back into...
Nobody wants to talk about this.
Yeah. Besides you two, everyone wants to talk Star Trek. So Pat Putnam says, try an Australian saddle, you'll never look back.
There you go, JG. What do you think? So it's a Pat Putnam...
I have no idea what an Aussie saddle's like.
Yeah.
What's it like?
It's right. That's a good question. I'm not sure what the difference is with an Australian saddle, but we'll see if we can get JG to do that for one of us.
It's probably not
we have a Dave G Sound. Here's another 5 for you. This has been entertaining. Entertaining as a feature movie. This is great. Thank you so much, Dave G Sound. Let's see who else we've got. We've got Bernie EOD gave us another $10. Thank you, Bernie. You're being very generous tonight.
Fight one, Michael Weir. What about Michael
I
Weir?
know. The last week he's...
Off here, Michael.
Well, once we said it would be a while till we got back to Houston, he got annoyed. We have Ernie Berg.
So is that $2.79 Canadian or $20?
Neepo in Saskatchewan. He's messing with us. He's from Saskatchewan. Thank you, Ernie. Good to know. That's what I wanted to know.
I've never been to Saskatchewan.
So
and then JG, we have a question for you. Someone talked about your work on BioShock.
Yeah.
And Injustice. Gods Among Us.
Gods Among Us.
Yeah. So tell us about your voice acting work.
Oh, I've done a lot now. I just recorded 2 books, Barsk and the Moons of Barsk, for Macmillan Publishing. Through the writer was of the books was Lawrence Schoen, and I think you might know Lawrence Schoen. He's a huge Star Trek aficionado and fan, and he's a linguist. Now, being a linguist and writing a book that takes place 50,000 years in the future, he had words that were unpronounceable. The names of places. but I found that I adored doing it. I did about 45 characters on the second book, and anyway, that's one of the voice. That's it's about 20 hours I think of recording, and for a book, and I love doing it. I love doing the voice acting. I loved BioShock. I mean, I screamed my guts out for that role of Dr. Grossman. It's like, I'm a doctor! Don't ask me questions! It was like a 45 minutes or an hour and 45 minutes of that.
How very Scotty. Not Scotty. Yeah, that was reminiscent.
Oh, and and Injustice for Gods Among Us was wonderful. I had a wonderful time doing that. I did 3 characters, Ares, and the great character in that was Deathstroke. Oh, wow. Which I adored that character, and I was so hurt that I couldn't even get a reading to do the live action production.
Yeah.
But they went younger, as of
they
course
went with Mr. Sofia Vergara for that one.
Yes. and deservedly.
And deservedly so. No, I think Injustice is one of the best with the character designs. I'm not surprised at all that you were a perfect fit.
I love doing it, and it was a lot of fun. And the Star Trek Online, I've worked with those guys at Cryptic Studios in Los Gatos, which is right near. I used to run a Shakespeare festival right near there that toured all over Northern California. But Los Gatos, the cats, Los Gatos. Mm-hmm. It's Cryptic Studios, and these guys are wonderful. So hello, if you're listening out there, Cryptic. Great work. You're doing great work. Keep it up.
Looks like, did we already say we got that one? Yep.
Then, so JG, Jay Hancock says JG could be President Deathstroke.
There you go.
What's that character's? What's his real name?
Deathstroke?
Yeah, what's his name? That's the character you like, JG.
Slade
Wilson.
Slade Wilson, yeah.
Yeah, and he's really more of a Robin nemesis than a Batman nemesis most of the time.
Well, let me have the phones back because we're gonna. It's we've reached our 2-hour limit, and JG, we could talk all night with you, so we will reserve it and have you back another time.
I think Debbie's already gone to bed.
Well, please say hello to her and thank her for lending you to us tonight.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time.
And great talking horses with you, Crystal. Thank you.
JG says great talking horses with you.
Yes. Unfortunately, nobody else was interested.
My honor, Alec. Thank you for making part of this whole thing.
Well, listen, thank you. You're an absolute gentleman, and please stay warm. And we'll look forward to having you on again sometime in the near future.
Freaking snow, yeah. Snow. Okay, man.
Take care.
Peace. Live long.
Live long.
Thank you.
Prosper.
And everyone, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate it. I hope you guys had a great time. We had a great time. The chat, I couldn't keep up with all the chat, but you guys seem to be having a good time, and we thank you very much for that. So for now, thank you. We'll see you, today's Monday, so we'll see you on Friday on Real Trek when Brian Montgomery from Popcast will be with us, and hopefully I've invited Gary Buechler from Neurotic to join us as well, and we'll be talking Star Trek Discovery and what we like about what's happening this season, and what we don't like, and that's it. And thank you so much. We appreciate it, everyone. And for now, as always, live long and prosper. I don't want to do that in front of Crystal's face there. There you go. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Bye.